Welcome back to the Road to City Hall, where we are talking about the future of public housing in our city with Housing Authority Chairman John Rhea, the Regional Plan Association's Julia Vitullo-Martin, Greg Floyd of Teamsters Local 237, and City Councilwoman Rosie Mendez. And Julia, tell me a little bit about, from your perspective, where is public housing heading? As we just heard, you can, detail by detail, dollar by dollar. It's a very tangled and in many ways tragic story. But from your perspective, is public housing viable for New York? Is public housing going to be viable for the United States?
Actually, I think those are two different questions. I think there's really very little doubt but that public housing, traditional public housing, is not viable for most of the country. And nearly every large authority has gone in an entirely different direction from New York. I think it is viable for New York. The situation you laid out in your early remarks is completely on target. Federal government has withdrawn its support. The state has withdrawn its support. The city is not able to increase subsidies probably at all, but certainly not substantially. And therefore, the direction that the chairman and NYCHA have gone in of looking to their own resources for the future is, in my opinion, the correct and indeed the only direction.
There was a report from the Manhattan Borough President estimating that in Manhattan alone, public housing has something like over 30 million square feet of undeveloped or unused development rights, combination of air rights plus square footage that's not being used. The infill project, which would use ball fields, parking lots, other unused spaces, and try to convert them into some kind of economic resource for public housing. How is that going? The tenants in, I think, almost all of the developments where you're planning to do it, I think have voted that they don't want it. But the idea was what?
Well, first of all, what was so troubling about the early conversation is that, if I'm a New Yorker and I hear the size of the problem that you laid out and that Julia just referenced, I want to see my leadership across, all walks, elected, union representatives, the chairman of NYCHA, and, smart people in the private sector and in the philanthropic sector coming together to have a solution. And if we're bickering over the small things, we can't get to big ideas like the land lease and infill project, and how do we utilize a incredibly scarce resource like land in New York City. We've proposed the 30 million square feet of developable land you referenced is citywide, and we've only proposed to use about 4 million of those square feet to test out an infill plan, which we believe can generate easily hundreds of millions of dollars to reinvest in maintaining our buildings and to preserve the apartments for New Yorkers. We think it's not only innovative, but it's the least disruptive way. We're not proposing to move a single resident. We're not proposing to demolish a single building. All of the money would go to preserve public housing, and we would do it in a way in which we create new affordable housing in the process.
Now, you're in the business, Rosie Mendez, like all elected officials, of reaching reasonable compromises, but also occasionally telling or even selling to people bad news that they don't necessarily want to hear. Does the infill project, which is supposed to generate, I think, $50 million a year for this very badly strapped agency, does this fall in that category? Something that maybe you could try and talk to tenants about?
It's a very emotional issue because public housing residents are waiting years, 2, 3, 4 years to get a simple repair. They feel they've been disrespected, so when someone's coming with a plan, they don't know what to trust, what to believe. The reason in my district we're having a lot of issues with this, and in Margaret Chin's district, is because they're proposing infill development in the very same developments that got flooded during Sandy, and now you're talking about bringing more people into that same area. And people are worried about that. And how the system was, the infrastructure was taxed, and then building on that infrastructure.
Does Local 237 have a position on the infill?
Yeah, once again, you like to know before the plan is released that this is what you're thinking. And not having that plan, because I like somebody to go over the numbers. What are we going to do? What is it going to generate? How are we going to implement this? Wasn't done. It was just released. And then I look at it and I said, I don't know what this is. So unless there's communication, and a lot of people, a lot of residents came up to me and said, "Are you letting them sell our developments?" I said, "I don't know what you're talking about. Read this." And I'm reading the report, and I said, "I don't know what's going on here." And not only did I not know what's going on, I don't know if all the rules are being followed, because you just can't. This is a federal project. It has to go with HUD guidelines. You can't just say, "This is what I'm going to come up with." I saw the reports in the paper. They have these big developments in the middle of the projects, and the people can't see the projects. They can't look out the window and see the other buildings. And I don't know if that's the plan, but that was in the paper. And not being brought in and briefed, I don't know what to believe.
Let me give you a quick response, because we're almost out of time. When will both Local 237 and the rest of us know, with some specificity, what's being planned for the infill project?
Well, we've done a lot of meetings with residents. We've met with community boards so far multiple times. We've met with residents in the affected developments multiple times. We have all of the information, as he just mentioned, in terms of the schematics of what the scope of the developments would be on the specific properties. All of that information is available and has been provided to people, and we continue to update people as we have new information. The point in which we will have firm plans is once we issue an RFP and developers have responded to that with firm proposals. At that point in time, we not only can go to residents with the specifics of what's being proposed, but the dollars that will be generated from it and what kind of capital repairs that can be supported as a result of it. But we are continuing to engage. We're not going to stop engaging. We've met with our elected officials many times, and we'll continue to do so. Okay,
we're going to leave it right there for now. Thank you all so much for talking through a very tangled and touchy issue. It won't be the last time we talk, I'm sure. Right now, we're going to take a short break. Still to come, we'll show you a new website that tries to make it easier for people to find out who represents them. And later, a new book argues that Washington gridlock is causing cities like New York to gain increased economic power. We're going to explore that claim with one of the authors of The Metropolitan Revolution. Stay with us.